So remember, like, we have, so we can start this. Okay, so I know, first of all, I have lots of karma to be a hungry ghost. Right? Any kind of moment of miserliness or stealing or greed, covetousness, all of those kinds of, craving, right? Like any kind of, there are so many, it's so easy to create karma to be reborn as a hungry ghost. Of course, stealing or getting things by sort of manipulating others. This huge amount, it's so easy. So in this life or past lives, huge amounts of karma to be reborn as a hungry ghost. So I have this like, mountain of hungry ghost karma. Then, if you imagine being sick and dying, approaching death, of course, it's quite easy to have the mental state of dying with hunger and longing for food, right? Longing for drink. So this combination, right? You can't become a hungry ghost if you don't have the karma. You think, okay, so I have this mountain of karma to be a hungry ghost from all the times in this life and past lives when I was greedy or didn't want to give to somebody in need, felt resentful about things like that, grasped at things, right? Was, followed a kind of mind of self-centered desire, selfish desire. And so I have all that kind of karma. And then I imagine, combined with that karma is the factor of then I'm sick and dying, and I feel, right, the sense of, on the one hand I can't eat, on the other hand I'm hungry and thirsty. So there's a kind of longing for food that's unfulfilled. And so that kind of craving combined with the karma activates that karma. And so I go into the process of death with this kind of mind of craving and with the karma of self-centered desire being triggered, right? That's going to throw me into the hungry ghost realm. And again, like, so now I've died, and then I find myself being reborn as a hungry ghost. Which is, sometimes we see images of like the worst hunger and thirst in the human realm, but this hungry ghost realm is like that, only many hundreds of times worse even. So now I'm reborn, and I have this body that's, first of all, like extremely ugly, with like rough, sort of unpleasant skin. I have a kind of, my body's very kind of big, but my limbs are very small, so it's hard to get around. I have to kind of like drag myself to get in. I have a kind of big belly, and I'm totally overwhelmed with hunger and thirst. So the nature of this karmic appearance, this kind of body, is that I feel hungrier than like the worst hunger of the human realm. Thirstier than the worst thirst of the human realm. And so I start dragging myself, looking for food or drink. But the appearance is like I'm in like a desolate place, like a desert. So you can imagine, right? It's like hard to pull oneself across sand, right? So imagine going across sand. The sand is hot, and uncomfortable, I'm thirsty, and I'm dragging myself. If I were human, I would already be dead from like thirst. But this body, although it experiences worse thirst, it doesn't die. So for a whole day, I'm dragging myself across the hot desert. At night, I can't sleep because I'm so hungry and thirsty. In the morning, I start dragging again. With great effort, I drag myself kind of up a dune. And in the distance, I see a pond. So I spend that entire day and the next dragging myself towards the pond. Feeling unbearable hunger and thirst. And when I finally get there, it was a mirage. There's just more desert. I feel like I could just give up, just lay there. But I also am driven by my own craving. The hunger and the thirst drive me on. So it's like on the one hand I want to give up because I feel so hopeless and weak, exhausted. And on the other hand, I can't give up. One, because I know I won't, I'll keep living with this horrible, I won't just die. And the other is the power of the craving and the thirst and the hunger drive me on. And so I drag across desert, and then concrete, and then desert, and then concrete, for weeks on end, not finding even the tiniest atom of sustenance. After weeks like that, I again see in the distance what looks like a pond. Almost afraid to hope. I think, well, there's no choice, I have to pull myself there. Maybe this time there'll be something. So again, for days, no sustenance, I pull myself, drag myself. The sand is horribly hot, uncomfortable. My body is weak and exhausted. when I finally get there, this time, at first I'm relieved because it's not a mirage. It's more like a rest stop. But outside of it are like sort of bouncers, guardians, with clubs, and they say, "Do you have money to get in?" Of course, I have no money. So they say, "Well, if you don't have money, get lost." And I feel so exhausted, so hungry, so thirsty that I don't want to leave. But they beat me with the sticks, right? There's no compassion to be found. So they beat me, kick me, and shove me off, kind of glaring at me for being poor and destitute. You can imagine, right, the hopelessness, the shame, the humiliation. And again, there's no choice though, so one has to sort of continue dragging along through rough concrete, through like rocky terrain, through hot sand, everything dry. Imagine like after months like that, while dragging through a concrete wasteland, maybe on the bottom of just on the dirt, in the dirt, one finds like a dirty, old, dry piece of gum that somebody chewed and spit out. And so that becomes like one's most precious possession. As one tries to sort of suck on that old, that sort of tastes like dirt, or maybe there's still like the very slight hint of a flavor of some gum left. Mostly it's dry dirt. And one just continues on, dragging. Year after year after year. once one comes across, again, like what looks like some kind of pond. When one gets there, one discovers it's just the place where they empty septic tanks. Again, one has to just drag. And again, as we did earlier, just to contrast with the human experience, right? When I was a human, even if I had to miss one meal, it was hard to then, I couldn't, like if I was thinking I was going to do some meditation, then if I was hungry, I had to stop, I would stop. Oh, I can't concentrate. I need lunch. Oh, I can't meditate without some tea or drink there, soda or something, water. Even like if the tea wasn't the type I liked or the coffee wasn't the type I liked, it had to be a certain brand or a certain style of tea or coffee or whatever. If not, then my mind wasn't happy, wasn't content. Even to go for like a few days fasting would have seemed like a horrific suffering when I was human. Now it goes on for centuries with no break in the hunger or the thirst.